Yes, we've had apologies from Councillor Morris.
Okay. Item 2, interest and declarations as and when. So then we go on to the minutes from the last meeting, 18th September. So I know that you will have all read them. So I'm going to propose for accuracy. Do I have a seconder? All in favour of accuracy, and then we'll go to matters arising. We're all voting? Yep. So then, any matters arising? Do we have any matters arising? Do you know, Louise?
Only along the lines, just to let you know that the Crantock Street Garden has now progressed, and they've commissioned solicitors to review the lease, so it is underway.
Okay, lovely, thank you. And then we move on to item 5, which is open session for any nuclear residents. I know there's a gentleman sitting in the audience. I don't know if you're here to ask a question or you're just observing us. Yes. Oh, don't stay here then.
Yes, there is some correspondence. Bear with me just one second. We had an email in regarding the Gannell Link Road pedestrian crossing. So we had an email in from Councillor Creek in regard to a member of the public getting a crossing put on the Gannell Link Road, and whether we would support lobbying Cornwall Council and Highways in regard to some CAP funding. So it was if you had a look through the email and if you were willing to support that, we could contact Highways and suggest they add it to their list when the next round of funding is released, because there isn't any live at the moment.
And Abby will correct me on if I'm wrong here. There's actually there's 2. There's the Gannell Link Road, and I believe it's halfway down the Link Road, isn't it, where the water main burst is at the moment. I think roughly. Yeah, so it's coming across where you've got that island in the middle, isn't it? And so there. I appreciate that might be a tricky ask just because it's a 40-mile-an-hour zone, and I know how Highways feel a bit funny about that. But yeah, you're right. There is one at the bottom. So and I did meet with the transport portfolio holder this morning in Bodmin, and he indicated to me that the funding for CAPS for their transport works was coming to the next cabinet meeting, so that's imminent. And so CAPS, certainly by December, I would hope, would have a better idea of what they've got to spend. And so I think if this town council were in a position and felt willing to back a call for a pedestrian crossing on the Gannell Link Road, we could try and get in early, do some scoping with a view to spending some money to do that in the early part of next year, maybe April, May. So it's Gannell Link Road, and then the other one was the Boating Lake, the road by the Boating Lake. So the double roundabout at the bottom of the Treloggan Hill. So if we're coming down that hill, we're turning left, and we want to cross over towards the Boating Lake. There's no crossing there, and actually they get quite a speed up on that. And I know we've got speed cameras on that bit of the road, Joe, don't we? And so we'll have some data, hopefully, to back up the fact that people drive along there pretty quick, certainly above the speed limit a lot of the time. And I think that's a real strong argument for why we would want a zebra crossing there. So it was really just a recommendation to presumably both write to Highways requesting this and write to the CAP and request them to put this on their transport plan for funding. Is that okay? Yeah. Does that sound right, Joe? Yeah.
And just to say, at no cost to us, Newquay Town Council, that's all Cornwall Council funding. Yeah, that's fine. So I'm
more than happy to propose that.
Thank you. I'll second it. All in favour? So is that an action that we write the letter or the office will do that? Okay, lovely. Thank you. So we're now on to item 7, which is the grant applications. So obviously, because we're in the council session, you can't ask anything, we can't ask you anything, so it's just making a decision. So we're just going to the Imagine Outdoors. They were in first, so I'm happy to recommend that they get their £1,000. We've got a seconder for that, Councillor Slade, and all in favour. So you need to stay for the rest of the session unless you really want to. But anyway, see democracy in action if you want to, because that's what it's all about. So Councillor Creek and I had a little chat, because obviously 4,100 is a lot of money, and obviously we haven't got a huge pot. That's why I asked about any other funding pots. So Councillor Creek has got a recommendation, which I'm happy to second, but I'll let him sort of...
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So happy to propose that we utilise the £1,500 that's left in the ENF grants budget to allocate towards this particular grant application, and then a recommendation to GNR to release the remaining 2,600 from their grants budget to make up the 4,100 that Turnaround House is looking for the new kitchen. Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah. So I'm happy to second that, but what I will just say is we're only recommending it to the other committee. And what I suppose we have to caveat, if the other committee doesn't say yes, we probably wouldn't release the 1,500. I'm not really sure, so I just think people need to be aware of that. You could probably come in and tell me what if I'm saying is right.
You can still choose to allocate them the 1,500.
But they can't build the kitchen for 1,500. That's what I mean. So,
but they've got 12 months to, if they've got the rest of the funding within that 12 months.
Okay,
then they can,
that's fine. I just didn't want you to think, yes, they're giving us 1,500. The other committee will say, yes, they can have the 2,600. Then they say no, and you've only got 1,500. You've only got really a third of kitchen, haven't you? So that I just want you to be aware. That's why I've said that. So I'm happy to second. All in favour? Thank you.
When will...
Well, next GNR meeting, I'd have to...
I wait Monday morning.
Oh, you're far too quick.
Thank you.
Actually, Councillor Thompson's chair of that. No pressure, Councillor Thompson. Yeah. But I just feel it's always best to be honest, because people go away thinking, yes, we've got everything, comes to another committee and they say no, for whatever reason, and then they think, oh, the council said we could have it, but actually we're just saying that we're going to recommend it, so...
Yeah, can I just jump in, Chair? Sorry.
Should I stop you?
No. Good try. On both, and we probably should have picked this up before, but I'd love to, I know that when we give out grants, we tend to try and celebrate the great work that you guys are doing, and the town council, and taxpayers through the town council are supporting. So it'd be really good to get to get our comms team involved with you guys to have a look at what that might look like, if that's all right. Is that okay, Chair?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Obviously, when you do get your funding and you do get what you need for your CIC, invite us up and we can do a photo shoot to sort of promote yourselves even more to the community, and the same with the Turnaround House. But I know that you do an amazing job there. But thank you anyway for coming, because it's not easy to put the grant applications to do them, but obviously, we have to be really careful because it's not our money.
Evening. You've got 5 reports in front of you. The first 2 are your year-to-date reports dated the end of August, and are just for information unless you have any particular questions. This session and this item is really for next year's budget, and I'll go through those individually afterwards if you're happy. I think the one thing that's different this year to other years is in previous years we've had reports from, at this stage in the budget setting process, reports from individual managers on what their needs are for the coming year. However, with all of the staff restructure that's taken place, there have been some change in roles, so that hasn't come about, which is why you've got these budget reports, because normally at this stage you wouldn't see an overall budget, you would just have reports from managers, and then your meeting in November you would discuss the individual budgets. But I felt since you haven't got that at this stage, it was important to give you something to consider for you to amend. So they really are draft. There may be things that you want to take out, or there may be things that you want to add, but it's sort of a rough guide for you, a starting place for you to start. So the third report that you've got, I've done these differently this year. So normally you have a massive E&F budget. It's like, I don't know, 15 pages long, and it's really sort of difficult to manage in terms of budgets, not only for different service areas and managers, because everything's all interlinked and mixed in. So what I've done is I've split it into 3 sections, which is why you've got 3 reports this time rather than the one. I've included all of the community assets on one budget heading. Then I've gone down to the town toilets so that you've got all of those under another sheet. And then finally, the few investment assets that you have. So you can clearly look at what should be breaking even, if you like, or sweating your assets, as I know that as members you like to use that phrase. But it just gives you a bit more of an idea of how and who's responsible for different areas of the budget. So that's why it looks different this year to other years. The first report I'm just going to run through quickly is the community assets. Now, again, I've gone through, yeah.
Do you mind if we, sorry, Anne, I hate to jump in. Can we just look at this year for a sec?
Yeah.
And then jump into, because this is, I suspect this is going to be a lengthy dig through some of the budgets for next year for understandable reasons. But for this year, and I was trying to scan through it earlier. So it looks to me as if we've taken about 20% more on public conveniences than we would have budgeted for this year. Is that right? Have I read that right?
Yeah, so yes, we have, because we've installed new coin taking and cashless machines on a number of our toilets. And also we have now got up and running the one on Watergate, and that's a quite high used toilet. So yes, there are an increase, and I think I've put a slight increase on the budget figures for next year as well.
Okay, that's brilliant. Firstly, well done, everyone. That's a brilliant news story. I think, and in terms of another 8,000, sorry, the 2020s, the blue column, is that 25-26 budget in totality for the whole year. So at this point in the year, and we're only at the 31st of August, we've taken £50,000. We were budgeted to take 42 for the entire year. So we've still got another 6 months worth of, albeit less income because it's autumn, winter, but is that right? Have I read that right?
Yeah, there are some capital grants in there that we had for the railway station from Boardmasters, because I don't know if you remember, but they agreed a certain lump sum, but they pay it over 3 or 4 years. So there's quite a big sum in there that will go back into that EMR. But at the moment, that wasn't in the budget. So that's just over £7,000 of that money.
Right, okay, so I see. So in effect, if we take that away, we've hit the year-end budget by the end of August. So that's still a good news story in terms of toilet income, which, as you know, is a real bugbear of mine over the last few years. So that's brilliant. Well done. I think that's really good.
For me, just a simple question.
Yeah.
Item 10, the fountain. Which fountain are we talking about? Not the one at the post office?
It is the post office fountain.
Because I thought we'd negotiated that we weren't paying any more money on that. We weren't paying the water. We weren't paying.
Yeah.
But I know it's not a lot of money, but, you know, we thought that was all done and dusted.
There have been numerous problems with that, and Kathy has been amazing with it. They haven't been able to come out and disconnect it, which is why we've been paying standing charges. I think they've just come back to us either today, was it today? And they've refunded our charges for a set period to the first date that Kathy emailed them and notified them, and they've given the council, I think it's a £75 goodwill gesture for compensation for all the trouble that they've caused. But to be fair, I mean, Kathy's emailed them a lot over the last time.
Blood out of the stone from South Wales. So well done, Kathy.
So, you know, I think, so we've been trying to do our best, but these things take time.
I do know that, but I just thought I had to ask that question.
Yeah, that's fine.
So what are you going to run through with us? What do you think?
So I was going to go through the community assets one first, which is the third one down under item 8. Again, the green column is what you're looking at realistically for the 26-27 budget. There aren't a huge amount of changes. We've put a 3.8% increase across the board in line with inflation at August, and there have been slight changes throughout the budget. But if you look at totals in terms of where we are and what we've got, then that's what we're looking at. So the main changes, I'm just going to, I mean, obviously haven't had this a huge amount of time, so if you've got specific areas you want to ask to have included or explained or increase or decrease, then please let me know. But what I have done is I've left in the grant funding, which is currently line 49, has been increased to £5,000. It was felt that it should be in line with the other committees, whereas this committee has always been a lower sum. The C&T committee agreed to increase their grants funding. So they've now got 6,250 in the proposed grants pot rather than 5,000. They always had 5,000 before, which was double. So we felt it was important to level that out. So at the moment, it's only got the 5,000 in there, but that's obviously a decision for you as members, but there is an increase because we're hoping that we'll be able to work better and well with other community groups like the people that have been here this evening. So that's something that has increased. Then if I go down, just going through it really quickly.
Can you just go to 53? You've got
Yeah.
the weed control.
Yeah. So
Why that was in.
yeah, so last year, this was another one for members to discuss. Last year, when it was decided to cancel it at the budget, you agreed to keep the money in there for what you called town enhancements. I wasn't sure whether that was something you want to continue into this budget year, but I've put it in. Again, it's something you may wish to remove.
Okay.
As far as I'm aware, we haven't used that money this financial year. But again, I need your feedback on that. Going through again, we've got the play areas in here. There is an additional site for the Godolphin football ground. This was a likely site that is being negotiated at the moment. We've put in a sum of £10,000 going up by 10% going forward for anything that needs to be done as and when the council takes over that property and in the future. So that was just an initial sum to try to make sure that when we do take on assets, we do have something in the budget, and always, I believe it's a fairly well looked after site, and that we are able to maintain it going forward without hiking the precept. So that's why that is in there. That is line 108. If you keep going down, obviously these are the allotments are similar, no major changes in any of this. And then you have the library building and the council offices. So there's a slight reduction in those costs.
Sorry, and
Yes.
just so a couple of things. At the top, you've still got the water fountain on there
Yes.
for the post office. If we're saying that that's now
Yep.
gone, can we remove that?
Yeah.
The weed control, I think that's a discussion, isn't it? I'm not sure how others think. that one you've just explained. Other equipment under, oh God, where is it?
If you can
Sorry, there's a £10,000 capital purchase for the Killer Court open space that's popped in there.
Yep, so we have 10,000 for Killer Court because there are paths that need looking at and the steps that need sorting as well. So we increased that to cover those areas. I think, was that the main areas of Killer Court?
Yeah. Sorry, what you mean the resin paths?
Sorry.
No, so the steps which go down from the top of the Killer Court down to the promenade, the railings are pretty much falling into disrepair, and the steps. So the steps would be done by our team, but the railings would need replacing. I haven't checked on here whether that would be a recurring cost and year on year. But yeah, roughly it would be, quotes are in around that region, 8 to 10,000. So, and I don't think there's a hell of a lot in the open spaces of the EMR either. So I think that's what our view on that one was.
Sorry, if we're doing that as well, I don't know if it's there. Can we get a tactile, the textured segment at the top of the steps, please, for the visually impaired? If there isn't one there, if they're ours and you're redoing them. Thank you.
So can I just ask, do we own the steps all the way down to the beach? Okay.
Yeah, so that was a request from Southwest in Bloom as to whether we would host, I was going to bring it up in the Newquay in Bloom section, but host the awards ceremony next year here in Newquay for essentially them paying 50%, us paying 50%, and it roughly would look at, I think, £10,000, but I think we could offset a lot of that through partnership working with BID, who I'm sure would put some money in towards that 10,000. I actually think that if we worked with other local businesses, we might be able to offset some more of that. So I think that's worst case scenario. I think my feeling on the weed control thing is I think I'd be tempted to, firstly, if not reduce, then get rid of the £7,000 weed control budget, given that we've not used it this year for anything. The youth centre, I think I'm right in saying this is now the third year with the budget that we've squirreled money away for. And we still haven't got a date for that, have we? So at the moment we've got, what, £30,000, Anne, by the end of this year for the youth centre. So that would make, for next year's budget, that would make that £50,000 for the youth centre, 20 for the St John's ambulance. What's in our have we got like facilities EMRs, Joe? Anne, Joe, anyone? I'll take your answer from anyone.
So at the moment I've got the EMRs up till the end of this financial year. We tend to have individual EMRs for different areas, if you like. We've obviously got, we put in 10,000 for the new youth centre for the first year and 20 this year. So yeah, we've got the 50, which we would have next year if we go now. I'm not sure of the timelines on that kind of stuff.
But we've also got things like community infrastructure levy money, which can be used on facility buildings like the youth centre. So I don't know whether and St John's ambulance, actually, if we were using it as a community centre. So I'm just looking at the bottom line number is a shocker, frankly, isn't it? And so I wonder whether there's a opportunity there, because I know we've got quite a chunk of SIL money sploshing around at the moment, even once we've paid for the play park and bits and pieces. So
SIL stands at 65,000.
yeah, and we'll get some more receipts from that presumably in April, won't we?
We had some in April.
Yeah.
And then we've just had a notification of some more coming through. I think it's about another 28,000.
Right. Okay. So we've got almost 100,000, and we're likely to get more next year. So I think and I appreciate this isn't in this budget, and I know that we've got a meeting next week, you, Andy, and I about all this. But when we're looking at the wider council budget, which I appreciate is not what we're doing here, we never allocated any of the second home tax anywhere last year because we knew it was going to be a problem this year. And the report seems to suggest it is lower than maybe what Cornwall Council had expected this year, is what I was told by the Section 151 officer. But there will still be money there, and we can allocate that into budget lines this year because the second year is a bit more reliable than the first, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There is an element of that. My only concern with the EMRs for, there's two sides to it. One is I always like to have some revenue in this because it is a revenue budget. So what you have in your EMRs is there for improvements and stuff when you take something on. And when you do take on a new building, you will have costs, even if you just go down surveys and things, and they can be £7,000-8,000 a time. So you need to have enough money to fund that. But equally, every time you take something out and you don't carry it through, that means your next year you're going to get hit because you've got to have that revenue in place. And the one thing that I've been trying to do over the last few years is make sure that your revenue budget is a true representation of what you actually spend and not using your EMRs for everything. Because when you do look at your EMRs, especially just for ENF, for instance, you've used a lot of money out of it. The ENF EMRs. I mean, for instance, I was talking with Joe earlier today, in the public convenience EMR, you've only got 26,000 in there, and you had over double that when I first started. So they really, really, really have been taken down, and for some of those things, even though we're incorporating rolling replacements, there's still an element that you do need some for the larger purchase. So I'm always going to be super cautious. It's up to you as members to make those decisions, but I would always err on the side of caution.
I mean, ultimately what we're talking about here is a £120,000 increase on the annual budget of ENF, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, and the budget for this year sits at 210, say. We're going up to 326, 327. So it's quite a jump.
We've got 2 new buildings with
Yeah, no. I don't
well.
disagree. But I think we also need to be mindful of that that increase. I think and where there's opportunities to use up other funds like the SIL money that we've got coming in and bits and pieces that we haven't really used at all in the last few years, have we? We haven't really spent any SIL. In fact, I think we're at the point where we might lose some SIL if we don't spend it. We will spend it, obviously, but that's not a great place to be, is it? So I think I'd rather do that than be putting the loads extra on the taxpayer.
So are there any bits of this that you would like me to tweak before we go on to the next one? So you talked about weed control.
So weed control I'd get rid of,
Yeah.
because we don't do weed control, and it was a point I made to the transport portfolio holder earlier, who says he might do something.
Do you want to increase the grants fund to the 5,000 rather than the 2.5 that I mentioned had been increased?
So I think, I'm thinking of the wider budget. I already made a pitch for reintroducing community chest grants
Yeah,
at
that's in
GNR.
there. That's in there.
I think that would be a better place for us to increase grants money than putting more money on C&T and E&F's overall grant pot. So I wouldn't be increasing. I don't know what others think about that.
So anybody got any questions or any thoughts?
Just dealing with the weed budget, I'd quite like to look into getting one of those weed cutting devices. Yeah, the thing push up, one just for our stuff, but also I know Nansledden expressed interest in renting it from us.
Somewhere in this budget, there's a capital expenditure for equipment, isn't there, for the environment team? I saw it earlier when I was looking at it. I can't remember where it is, but
Under open spaces, there is an equipment budget. It tends to cover the rolling replacement of the small equipment and mowers and things, so it does tend to be used, plus all the services that are used for that. But we haven't, I don't believe, spent that money this financial year, so if that's something that you wanted to look at, you could look at that within
just found
that
it's
without.
£5,000 for this year, £5,000 for next year. So so that's what I'm saying. You've got that money there to buy that piece of equipment. It's not going to be more than £5,000, is it? So.
Do we know? Off the top of my head, about 3.5.
So do we need to re-look at it so we can get a cost?
Yes.
You know,
I'll go back to the team and say that that's what you'd like that money to be looked at and get the quotes, etc., to bring that back to committee. The grants you want to reduce back to 2,500. All members happy with that? Okay. Carry on.
Sorry, the youth centre and the St John's ambulance. I think so. We've got £50,000 in the budget, 20 for St John's, 20 for the youth centre, 10 for Godolphin, and we don't have any of those assets yet. The youth centre, we've already got 30 in the pot. I do appreciate that there's going to be some expenditure on that building when it comes, but who knows when it's going to come, and inevitably it may not be in the next financial year. So I don't know. I don't know what others think. When I'm looking at that much of an increase, I just think putting 50 grand into things that we don't currently own as well seems like a lot.
so we need to ask Cornwall Council what they're giving us when we get that,
Yeah.
so that could be reduced even further.
And we've got
Can-
100 grand of facil.
Sorry, Councillor.
I mean, a couple of years ago when you first started looking at the youth centre, we asked for their running costs. Their running cost a couple of years ago was 35,000 a year. So that's where the 30 odd was coming from. So it was really to cover just the running costs, that money. So we, rather than anything to do with the building, and that wasn't including anyone's wages or anything like that. So that was just like heating, lighting, and rates and
But
everything.
this is maintenance.
I think it's really generalised. When I've always put it in the maintenance, I haven't split it out. It's an overall budget guesstimate. We do get figures from Cornwall Council when we're looking at taking out and devolved assets. So that's where this information has come from. And that's why, you know, if it's realistic, it's coming on board within this financial year, we need to start to put the money in there, because otherwise you're just delaying it a year. It is going to happen, and there are always costs when you take on other assets.
I suppose, though, if we
do-
remove it, we
Yeah.
would hopefully increase our income from the toilets, because we're hoping to get most of them on, you know, charging. And if we've already increased our income already,
I think that's another thing that we'll talk through on the next one, which is toilets, because you don't have a lot in your EMR to pay for all of that. So you're going to have to increase your budget to cover the costs of putting all of those additional charging units in. And some of them are like 11,000, 12,000 pounds each. So that's going to be a cost that you need to do.
well, I think that might be incorrect, because we were told 2,000 per unit when we met at Forth Toilets.
That's per site.
Okay, because that's
Not per unit, but per
to
site.
be honest, that frightens us, because we were thinking 5 toilets, 55,000, but we know it's 2, I think, or thereabouts.
We're doing that when we get to toilet.
Yeah.
There is, in my separate report further down, I do have cost estimates for all the sites.
Yeah.
So we can talk about that when we get to it.
Sorry, I noticed this earlier as well. So at the moment, we've got a rental income from the council offices, Marcus Hill, for this year, £5,000, for next year, £3,000. Mindful that you look shocked there, Anne.
This building, mine's
Marcus
got
Hill.
6.
Mine
6.
says 3. Council offices, Marcus Hill,
sorry, with the
£3,000.
service charge,
Yeah, sorry, with the service charge, 6,600.
Yeah.
But rental income from this year alone, 5. Rental income from next year, 3. But there was a report that went out last week, I think, from Laura Louise, one of you, maybe it was Laura, on rental income opportunities from this site
Yes.
and the Mount Wise building
Yeah.
and the library. And I got quite excited about that report, really, because not because of what it said, but also because what it didn't say about business rates. And as I was saying to the clerk, it looked to me as if there was about a 70 grand net change, income change in the budget when you take into account the 30 or 40 grand of the rent, and then the reduction in business rates by, almost the same amount, I suppose. That's not represented in this budget.
No. None of that is represented because committee haven't met and discussed and reviewed what's going to happen with either of the buildings. And when it's been discussed, I believe it's looked at whether the new directors, when they come in, have input onto that as well. So I don't know, at the current time, there hasn't been a decision on which way we're going. So I am forever and a prudent accountant and not going to put stuff in that you haven't agreed yet, which is why it's not in there.
So I suppose, and I accept your premise for that argument, what I would say is we have all but made that decision in so much as what we've done with our staff structure review, freeing up the space in this building for it to sweat some cash for us. And so I think it would be prudent of us to, at the very least, factor in the potential rental income from this site, along with the reduction in business rates into the 26-27 budget. I'd also be really keen to do the same for the Mount Wise building, based on the figures that we were given. Because, and actually, we're going through a recruitment process at the minute. Best case scenario, we're interviewing in December. They've got 3 months notice period. We're not going to have these people in place until April, and we can't afford to wait 6 months to make that decision. So we may well make that decision tonight or whenever we make that decision, but it needs to happen for April 1. So I think it should be in this budget. So I appreciate how cautious you are, and it served as well. But I think on this one,
I have to say there are other things attached to that, in that that we have a number of staff. Staff are going to increase. We don't have anywhere to put them at the moment. Upstairs isn't going to happen immediately, so there is a delay. The conversations have been around where you might locate the staff in any changes, and that might be downstairs. It might have to be in the Mount Wise Centre, and there have been discussions about using the St John's Ambulance building. We don't even have that at the moment either. So I think I'm protective of how are you going to and where are you going to put these staff to be able to do. And that's why I think I've been don't want to put anything in particular. Well, I'll put something in, but I think you have to be fairly cautious in terms of when a lease would start, because you're going to want to advertise it. There may be an opportunity where you don't have to do that and people come forward, but realistically, normally you advertise things, there's always legals to go through, and it does take some time. So I think in terms of this building, there is a definite argument to put something in, even if it was for half of the financial year. With the Mount Wise building, it is used a lot for the community group, and I think that's probably a conversation that this committee has to have openly on an agenda so that you can decide which way you want to go. So I'd be more cautious about putting anything in for up at the Mount Wise Centre at this current point in time.
Okay, so can we, good point, well made. And so on that basis, I do think that the rental income from the downstairs retail unit, i.e. the TIC, needs to be factored in for the whole year. I accept what you're saying about the staff, and there will be need to do some work done. I think in terms of the rest of this building, we could put in at least 6 months worth of the income and reduction in business rates for it, because that still gives us almost a year to get to that place from today. So
you want me to put it in from the 1st of April, not a 6-month period from, because I would say realistically it would be after it would be sometime after April before you got a tenant in, maybe, depending on who
for the
they
downstairs TIC.
Well, are you talking about the whole of downstairs?
So I'm talking about the TIC as a unit.
TIC.
Yeah, so that in for the full 12 months, including the reduction in business rates. Okay. 6 months of the rest of what was on that report for this site. Yeah. And then, happy to have 6 months worth of both rent and reduction in business rates for the Mount Wise Centre on the basis that we haven't made a decision yet. But at least we've got something in the budget for next year, because I think that will be more representative than just not putting anything in. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. To be honest, although we were part of the reorganisation and that working party, we haven't had any information in regards that they haven't got spaces for people. So that's the first that we've heard that we can't do anything because we need to know where people are going to be sitting. So I suppose that's a conversation we should all be having.
Yeah.
I think.
We work from home policy.
No, what I'm saying is we as town councillors have not heard that what you've just said, that there are people who may be employed and there are no spaces for them, when there are some spaces here in this office, on this site. Forget about TIC, because that was the plan that we had. But we're not aware that there isn't room for these people.
I think it's a very new thing. It's just only sort of coming up, but that's why we're talking about it and I'm sort of mentioning it to you.
Councillor Thompson, are you going to, I don't know if you're going to have the card.
No, it's just like waving around, just waving at you. And I mean, hopefully we'll get some money in for Priory Woods as well, but that's going to be a real guesstimate as to when that comes in. But then hopefully that will become an annual thing, won't it, from DEFRA?
So can I just recap on what we've agreed? So post office, remove everything that we can. Not reoccurring costs associated with the path capital works on Killer Court. I'll take out the weed control sum, but I will look at getting the equipment that you want purchased within this year in the budget that's there. Reduce the grants down to £2,500. Include rental for Marcus Hill as the back area, if you like, of the offices for 6 months, but the TIC from the 1st of April, and look at the reduction in business rates. That's going to be difficult to calculate because you have to put in an assessment and that takes some time.
Yeah.
So I will be very, very cautious on the amount that I reduce that. In terms of Mount Wise, that's on our investment property. Can we just recap that when I get to that point? So is that okay?
Yeah.
Great. At this point, did you want me to reduce any of those? I don't want to, I'll be really honest with you. In terms of the properties that we're looking at taking on, would you like to look at those since you brought them up? I'm just wondering what your views are as a committee. We're looking at St John's Ambulance, the Youth Centre and Godolphin. Yeah.
I mean, I'd be tempted to reduce St John's Ambulance and the Godolphin by half.
Okay. Okay. Great, thank you. But next year and the year after, I'll leave them as they are for now.
That's fine.
Okay, great. Okay.
Well, we'll have the other, the other 6 months worth of revenue from the other rentals.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that's the first one. The second document is the town toilets. Oh, and just before, sorry, we go back on, were you happy to increase that budget by £10,000 for the South West in Bloom? Or did you want to slightly tweak that figure because you talked about being able to
Yeah, so I mean, I think
work with bid and things?
it's probably a £6,000 budget with £4,000 partnership funding from businesses or from Business Improvement Districts, along with match funding from South West in Bloom.
So if I keep it at 10, put a £4,000 in grants in receipts,
Yeah.
match funding, then
Yeah,
we're good.
great, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I can do that.
And we'll talk about that in section 9.
Oh, I was going to say,
Yeah.
Mr. Joe.
No, because we obviously have to do a resolution, otherwise we can't go back and say yes.
These aren't your final budgets, you get to do it in November as well, but it's just for you, so that you get a whole look at the council's precepts at GNR next week. So town toilets, so this is where you've got just your toilets, so you've got your central budget and then the individual toilets. You can see that we've increased the income for each of the toilets, some of it up to 10% because that's what we've had in the current year. And, you know, you are looking at putting in new coin and contactless machines in some of the free toilets, which I have not done on this report because at the current time they're not in place. I don't know whether you want to go through the report later on with Joe when it's on the agenda and agree to include those figures within this budget at that point once you've gone through the detail, or whether you want Joe to go through that information now for your consideration.
The toilets are in confidential, aren't they?
Oh, are they? Okay. Sorry.
Yes, elements are, but in terms of the estimated cost for the coin pay, we could bring that out confidential. We could talk about that now.
Okay, so you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. So following a site visit that myself, Richard, Councillors North and Slade had around all the facilities, we highlighted a number of sites which currently don't have any coin pay systems at all. So I had a meeting with the current provider, Danfo, that we've used on the other two sites. They came down, might have been last week and might have been the week before, and have essentially priced up those sites which we were looking at. Watergate Bay, not to be confused, this is just for showers. So at the moment, one of the unfortunate downsides to reintroducing the coin pay systems at the Watergate Bay facility is that people are unfortunately now using the showers as a toilet. So we've had to close them off for obvious reasons. It's not good for public health. So We kind of brainstormed a couple of ideas between the four of us, how to try and mitigate that. And one of the ideas we came up with was essentially introducing the coin pay system on the shower, which would then deter that kind of behaviour. We would then reduce the amount or increase the amount of time people would have in the shower, or reduce the charge in the shower. So essentially there's no additional cost for someone using the shower. It's just they would have to actually pay to get in, whereas at the moment they can just get in and for free.
So just going back to that, I thought we agreed we'd put a machine that they have to pay to get in through that door,
Yeah.
but you still have the coin machine inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
You said no further charge, so I'm thinking once they get through the first door, they're thinking they'll get the shower, they won't then have to...
No,
box.
what I mean is we would say, for example, it's £1 per use. It would be 50p for the door and then 50p for the shower. So there's no kind of overall increase. So that cost of 9,600, that is for 2 showers. So whether this committee even want to proceed with any showers, 1 shower, 2 shower, that's completely up to yourselves. And the team did a really good exercise a couple of months ago where we got the income figures for Watergate Bay. This is excluding coin pay because they weren't there. So this was purely shower use, and I think from memory it was roughly £2,000 worth of income annually. So if you're looking at one of those cubicles, 4.5k, you're not really going to get your kind of investment return on investment in the first year or first couple of years. So that's a question mark really for this committee to kind of think about. Porth, as I had the manufacturer down there, I asked them to price up the whole facility as well as the 3 doors cubicles that we were looking at, because there may be some mileage. If you're going to do it, would you just do the whole thing as opposed to just doing 3 doors? That's for you to think about. You got quotes for both, but I just figured if you're doing the infrastructure for an extra 5,000, you would get the other 2 doors. So that's just for your consideration. Esplanade, again, that's the cost for the 3 cubicle doors. So roughly, most of these are on a similar playing field as the costs that we've had for Killicourt and Watergate. They're not really too far or too dissimilar. So Esplanade is roughly what it costs us to do Killicourt and Watergate Bay. Little Fistral, 10,000 for just 2 doors. The only thing that I would like this committee to consider is there is potentially a way of repurposing some of the coin pay units from another facility, i.e. Chester Road, and moving those to Little Fistral. Our maintenance operative could do that, and that might get that facility back up and running without the need to invest 10,000 in new systems. So that was just my thought process. I thought that was, I mean, this is completely up to you guys, but I thought that was quite a high cost for that facility, and I'm not sure you'd get the return on that. So yeah, that's the kind of estimates. These are just PC sums, so they haven't been confirmed by the subcontractor, but like I said, it was a very quick exercise. I kind of pushed them to get this to me for this evening, so yeah.
Thank you. So we're not going to vote on this now, it's just for us to, yeah, Councillor Creed.
Yeah, so a couple of things, both on that and the budget for the toilets. So number one, I know we've got a couple of donations in there for the train station, the Watergate. Presumably that's when Boardmasters pay us to clean to clean them over the festival.
Off, yeah.
But we don't have those for next year and the year after's budgets. Is that because it's different donations each year? Or?
Yeah, so essentially when we've done the budget, I've not put those costs in because we always advise Boardmasters what the additional costs are, and then they agree to pay them. So I never really know what they are, and they net off. So in terms of your purpose of your budget, it's not too much of an issue. We've never charged additional, have we, on top of what it costs us?
No,
so
just
if that
to
makes sense.
back Anne up on that. When I ask for, politely ask for grant funding towards the cleaning of those toilets, I generally base it on the quotes I've got for the contractors at the time, which do vary. So over the years, we've tried to kind of reduce the scope of what we ask for. So it does vary from year to year, and it will depend on some of the other decisions you make.
So presumably then, likewise, we don't have the cost
No.
in the budget for the, so it doesn't make a difference, essentially, is what I'm saying. Right, okay, that's fine. So then the other thing, and it'd be interest to this committee, is this morning when I met with the portfolio holder for transport, we discussed another area of Cornwall whereby Cornwall Council have the car park and the town has the toilet, and Cornwall Council, on top of their parking charge, levy an additional fee which then goes to the town councils for the upkeep of the toilets. And so he offered for us to do the same. So essentially anywhere where we've got that we can reasonably say we have a toilet near a car park, we can add an additional levy onto Cornwall Council's car parking charge to offset some of the cost of our toilets. Now, this is the first I've ever heard of this, but apparently it's something that's been happening for a little while in a couple of places around Cornwall. And he was sort of saying a nominal 20, 30p on a parking ticket as a single sum each time someone parks, and then that money comes to us. So instantly that got my mind whirring with ideas. I don't think it changes any of what we'll talk about later in terms of the plans for the winter. I think that's still prudent to do. But I do think it's something that we should consider and factor into next year's sums for car park income. It's difficult to say what that number will look like, though. That's the problem. But a kind of off the back of the fag packet calculation to me seemed to be
If you were able
40 to 60,000 pounds a year, maybe.
provide me that gentleman's name, I could maybe have a conversation about what their income is for that. Because there is only one car park, isn't there, in terms of 4th Street?
Watergate.
Watergate as well?
I was thinking Watergate, 4th Street, Little Fistral. No, it's next to, it's right opposite Manor. So
Fistral.
Watergate,
Is Fistral a paying car park?
South Fistral
Yeah,
is.
South Fistral.
Sorry, Little Fistral is.
Okay.
Well, Steve and I were going through this. Oh, I argued Trenance,
Or where's Trenant?
tennis courts. There's a toilet on the other side of in the Trenance Valley.
Concrete waves,
Yeah,
Concrete
concrete waves. Essentially, I think I got to every car park in Newquay that I could reasonably ask for some money from.
You could think Kilcourt with Mount.
So, I have access to the parking data
Yeah, that'd be
income,
good.
so I can have a look at that. I haven't had a chance this afternoon, but I think that would help soften some of the overheads that we're facing with toilets without having to put that onto the taxpayer.
Wasn't it, was it Bude? I think it
I think it was Bude and Boscastle. Was it Boscastle? Boscastle and
got a
Bude.
kind of
Yeah, I can contact them
rough
as well.
percentage or whatever.
And I suppose I'd like to ask why we didn't have knowledge of that. That seems inappropriate, doesn't it? That we probably have the heaviest footfall from tourists into Newquay, into our car parks and using our toilets that we pay for, and yet we knew nothing about that.
That's probably down to our previous.
I was surprised when I learnt it this morning. I almost bit his arm off when he told me. Let's hope not. So anyway, I thought that was prudent to talk about, because if we can add some of that in, actually, and it probably offsets the argument that we were previously having about tourist taxes and bits and pieces, because that's an easier mechanism to collect money from tourists to support local infrastructure.
Okay, well, that's something I can look into with Joe, and if you give me the contact. Yeah. Yeah, I'm like, oh yeah, okay. So the real things that I've changed in this budget are we've reduced the cleaning materials figure. It's increased from last year's budget, but actually it's decreased significantly from the spend. So that's something that we're going to look at. The figures in terms of refurbishment is what has left in there the same from previous years, with just the 3.8%. But overall, there's a decrease in that budget. And then we've got year on year, the budgets for each toilet are fairly similar, apart from the one for, I think it's Watergate. We had increased another capital sum that was looking to change the, put on all those units in that area so that that wasn't a problem. So we had already put in the figures for that one, although that might be slightly more than your budget, so I can cross-reference and add in when we get to that section later on. So they're the only real changes in this.
So are we going to, so assuming that everything in the report that we'll talk about later is agreed, are we going to factor that into this budget because it's not currently?
Yes.
Yes.
So
okay.
all of these changes that we discuss, I will input to the report that goes to GNR next week, and then you'll get the final report back for you to, if there's any tweaks, at your next DNF meeting in November.
Because that'll have a little tickle on the income and on the expenditure as well, won't it? So I think that's quite exciting, actually.
Okay. Great.
Very exciting.
We get very excited.
Well, at least I'm able to talk tonight.
And then the final document is your is your
Too frivolous now. Come on, let's get together.
the final one is your investment assets. So these are the things that really should be breaking even or making you money. And the things we've got in there are the South Fistral Car Park, the Mount Wise Centre, obviously the Mount Wise garages when they come across, the Killicourt units and the Killicourt Cafe. Okay.
And the
These are red because I haven't done tons of work on them. That's why they're like that.
okay.
Apologies.
The so the Mount Wise Centre.
Yeah.
I was looking at these earlier and I ended up just blurring over, to be honest, because you can look at numbers for so long and then you just don't see any. Do you? The Mount Wise Centre. How much is that costing us this year? Is it
This
29,000?
Yeah.
And next year we're projecting it's going to cost us 20,000.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I thought that's what it said. I just wanted to make sure because
But there's no adjustments in here for anything relating to if you were to change your mind and move from hiring it out to it being a rented completely property from top to bottom.
Okay, that's fine. So I think we should probably factor some of that in the same way for the 6 months. I think we said, didn't we? And that still gives us 12 months from today to work it out.
So are you talking both rooms downstairs left out and to stop
waiting room as well,
all of the community?
Yeah, potentially, because we'll potentially have the St John's Ambulance building by that point, which would be used as a community centre.
You just told me earlier we wouldn't have them probably.
I didn't say that. I
next
said we
year,
may
so-
not have those. I think the other area, and I know you and I have talked about this before, car park income.
Yeah.
So we've purposely kept the car park charging 20% lower than Cornwall Council's
Yeah,
3 years ago, I think.
that's correct.
We've never changed it since then. It's still the cheapest car park in town, obviously, because they've gone up and up and up and up, and they've just put them up another 6% last week. There's probably an argument for a nominal increase in the South Fistral car park, but I remember you and I having this conversation,
Yeah.
and you saying there is a cost to that.
Yeah, so.
And what is that?
So you have to advertise a parking order and you have to have that piece of work done. It takes quite a long time to do that. I think it can take anywhere between 4 and 6 months, I think.
Yeah, you'd want to start that rapidly.
Yeah, if you were going to do it. And we included it this current year that we're in, but we haven't done it. So I have also included it in next year's dependent. So if that was a piece of work that you wanted to carry out, we could look at that being in this year. Then I could half that next year so that maybe it's something you would do every 2 years and you can just account for it going forward so it's covered.
Sorry, half what?
The cost, there's £2,000 in there to carry out the parking order and stuff.
The miscellaneous expenses. Right, okay. Yes,
make
then
sense?
I think we should do it.
Tracking Cornwall Council prices with 20% off, but we do it every 2 years to keep it up to
Yeah.
date.
Yeah.
I think so.
You're happy with that? So is the discount 20%?
Well, when I first suggested it 3 or 4 years ago, I said let's keep it 20% lower than Cornwall Council. It was at the time. I suspect it's significantly lower than. I don't even know what we charge up there now. Oh, because it's winter. Yeah, but in the summer, what's the? Do you know? Off the top of your head, Joe?
Off the top of my head, I'd have to load up the website and find it.
If we charged it before 20% below Cornwall Council and it's been successful,
Yeah.
then in theory, as long as Cornwall Council goes up, we just stay 20% below. So we
Yeah.
get a 20% discount.
Yeah.
Tracking them.
But track
Yeah.
that, do it every 2 years to that.
Yeah, and I can put that in, and that's something that we can look at if we have the capacity to do. We'll do it as soon as we have the capacity to do it.
Yeah,
Is that okay?
Yeah. I think that, and also, just an aside on that, we never advertised it on the radio this year for some reason. I don't know. It obviously dropped off the radar somewhere. But if we can make sure that that is something that we do as a matter of course.
Yep.
We've got the package. Let's make sure that we use it because that helps, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Next couple of years, whereas we sort of flatlined a bit last year.
Okay, so I can have a look at that and increase the income accordingly.
And if we do start that process now, it takes 4 to 6 months, that would be sort of April, wouldn't it, you know?
Yeah, the only caveat I said with that was capacity-wise, because I don't know, we haven't discussed it with SMTs, that there is someone that actually can take that on at the current time. So as long as there is capacity,
Yeah.
we'll start that straight
Is it a
away.
huge piece of work or?
I think from memory, to be honest, it was getting the charges from yourselves as to what you actually want to charge. And once we've done that, I believe it's just a case of feeding that in, and then the consultation, I believe, is done by Cornwall Council. So
Okay.
I think the biggest piece of work is you guys agreeing what you want to charge as new tariffs.
Yeah. So I suppose we just need to know what the charges are now and then,
Work with Cornwall Council charges.
So
yeah.
may I suggest that we get the charges now, we get the Cornwall Council new charges from April, because that's probably when you would suggest.
Yeah.
I will work out like a 20% and like round it up or down, and just maybe email the chair and vice chair to make sure that they're happy. Is that all right?
100%. And we're still doing permits now.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
So we can factor that increase into
Yeah.
the budget, can't we?
Yeah, once I've calculated that, I'll factor that in.
Thank you.
Although I might not have that for GNR
No, that's
for the agenda to go in, but we'll get that. Mount Wise Centre is as it is set out, and we're going to look at doing 6 months.
Why has the rental income dropped? Why is you removed?
Because the service charges used to be in the wrong place. So it's actually calculated on what the agreements are now in terms of the different areas.
It says here 25 is 57,000.
Yeah, but you had
25.
2 years worth of service charges.
Oh yes, of course.
So that's why that's so. So I will factor in 6 months rental
Yeah.
for the ground floor.
Yeah.
It's probably not called the ground floor, but I know which one we mean. Okay. Are you happy that we notify people that we're going to do that? Because there are quite a lot of people that book that venue quite a long period in advance. So maybe we ought to be notifying them that's our intention.
I think financially, I'm not sure we have a choice around this. We've run it at a loss. For as many years as we can. I think, and we've got it. It's now still. It was 50-odd thousand. It was costing, wasn't it? And now we've got it down to 20-30 this year, potentially 20 next year. But I think we're going to have to do something. So
We can always include that we're hopeful that we're going to get the St John's ambulance. And
Yeah,
that,
absolutely.
We can include that, but I just
I
thought
think so.
it's only fair because sometimes it can take quite a long time to find an alternative venue. So I think we ought
And
to
ultimately, if we're talking 6 months, we're talking 12 months from today, aren't we? So
September. We would go from the 1st
Yeah.
of October. So pretty
essentially,
much.
yeah.
Okay.
Can I just ask, are those groups mainly daytime or evening? Daytime.
Yeah, maybe.
It's just that, you know, the building along the road, the Age Concern, or it used to be called the Senior Citizen Centre, obviously that is fairly cheap to rent in the evenings. It is used by Ad Action, I think, in the day on a rental, but I've just become a trustee of that site. And as a result, I know that the evenings it can be rented out and it is really inexpensive.
I know we've got the Mount Wise garages on here,
Yeah.
but we haven't got any income from that.
No, the general consensus that I've been advised of is at the point that we take them over, they are probably in a state that they would need knocking down, and there are costs associated with that because I believe they have asbestos, etc. So it may be that they become parking spaces or something similar. But I've left that off again because at this current time we don't really know what's going to come along with that, any costs associated with it or time periods. So I've left it off this year. And then the Killer Court units and the cafe are fairly similar year on year. Obviously, we've got their costs down to a minimum because we recharge the majority of it.
Does their rent go up with inflation?
The rent for the Killer Court units goes up with inflation, yes. And I think the cafe must as well. Don't know that.
Cafe
Check
does,
that
and
one.
one tenant at Mount Wise.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And then the service charge, does that
Service
increase
charges are recharge
on
of the actual spent for that year. I don't know if there's anything else that anybody wants to bring up or has that they wish to be considered, but that's generally where we are at the current time in terms of budgets. Like I said, at this stage, you wouldn't normally see this level of detail. It would more be reports from managers, but as we don't have that, I thought it'd be useful for you to see something as a committee.
No, it's good. 130,000 income.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
So, item 9, Nuking Bloom report, and I believe that Councillor Thompson's going to give us that.
I sent the report, but it hadn't been put on for people to look at. Sorry, you hadn't seen it to go. I attached it to the... Oh, you have seen... Oh, right, sorry, Louise. Okay, so I'll read out what it was then. So the first thing we discussed at Nuking Bloom then was trying to budget, and with the consideration of Nuking Bloom becoming a partner for next year, so we don't have to keep on asking for grant money every year. So we thought, because the land train's gone, we considered then, with all the fees and things for doing for going for South West in Bloom, mind you, if we have it in Newquay, it probably won't be as well. No, we've still got the cost, haven't we? The entries, and for taking the judges round, we're going to have to hire a vehicle this time, which could be more. So before, we've had an allowance of 1,000, and so I was thinking of, we thought about and discussed it of maybe 1,200. And then overall, then for a partnership which would encompass that for £2,000 a year. So that would include all the, like the mulching and the food and all the equipment and, you know, plants and bulbs and things that they do around the town. Signage as well and things. So, but it was a bit of confusion because did you think, Drew, that it had gone through, that it had already been agreed that we could be a partner in this committee?
So I think we talked about it at one of the, I can't remember if it was full council or GNR, and we talked about allocating a partnership model, and you and I talked about this a while ago, didn't we? In terms of the town council deciding that, for example, next year that they want to have a partnership with, say, Nuki and Bloom or Cornwall Pride or the Dinard Twinning Association, for example, and allocating a certain level of funding to that partnership, which they could draw down on in the year. I can't remember where we talked about it at a committee. I think it was GNR. I might be wrong. Is that right?
Yeah, so what we'd talked about in the past, and I'd explained that any of the Nuki and Bloom funding that they requested was supposed to come from the grant process and the £2,500 grant funding that you have within the ENF budget. But when it came to the not the Southwest, but what's the local, is it the Southwest Bloom event where you have the train and that was always agreed outside of that budget. And so when we were looking at how we're going to work going forward and with certain partnerships, there was the opportunity to look at setting up a small partnership agreement where we would hold a funding for a certain number of things, maybe the event, the train, they use compost and all these kind of things. So they had a set budget that wouldn't need to go to committee, that they could draw fund from as long as it was in that budget and for the specific purposes that was agreed within that terms of reference. That hasn't happened as yet. There isn't anything. I think I did separate out in this the Nuki and Bloom element because it has repeatedly been used and spent outside of that grant. So it is separate within this budget, but there hasn't been a partnership agreement discussed as yet, as far as I'm aware, but I may be wrong.
I think it's on the agenda for GNR.
Oh, is it?
The recommendation came from the last ENF meeting for it to go to GNR. So it was the ENF meeting didn't hit because it happens too soon. So.
That's fine.
That's just partnership for Nuki and Bloom, not the others.
So I think what we were talking about was each committee potentially having a partnership agreement. So it might be that ENF wants to partner with Nuki and Bloom. It might well be that C&T. I know they've talked about some partnerships with Pride. And I know Councillor Brooke and I are really keen to do some partnership working with the Dinard Twinning Association for next year, given it's the 40th anniversary of the charter signing. So it's probably something to look out for when we're planning budgets in terms of that for next year. Does that make sense? So it's probably a couple of grand on each of those budgets, GNR, ENF, C&T, for partnership working. Because if that's going to go through GNR week Monday, it'll bounce back here in C&T in November and be ratified by December. So something to look out for there, Anne, sorry.
Yeah, I know that the new events officer is very keen in partnership working and increasing what the council's presence is and things. So hopefully there'll be opportunities within her budget also for that.
What the one consideration if they become having a partnership agreement is that if in the future if anybody if pulled out, then they'll given a year's notice for that because they'd have to plan for that. So I don't know how the paperwork goes for the partnership agreement. So but that was one thing that they wanted to talk about. So the Bloomers have done their training with GWR, and they're going to then get £800 a year then for maintaining the planters down at the railway station. Water butts are going to go on to the brick shelter down there as well for watering that, so that they're going to be going in soon. With the development outside the Burger King side, they have planters there. They're going to have to be moved, but it's not something they're going to be worried about at the moment. Shirley advised that it's not going to be, because all that area is going to be flattened. I think it's a shame that the stone plant is going to go, but there we go. We discussed the Tranance project, which is the cottages down there are going to act as the charity and will do the applying for funding, but we're working with Kieran. So we're looking to augment down at Tranance then with a tree beehive that's locally made with a guy down Redruth Way. Bird boxes, hedgehog boxes, pollinator planting, updating and doing a new edition of the Tree Walk book for down there, doing education materials and sort of like cameras and things. So we're doing sort of a grant, that's what I was working on earlier when I should have been paying attention, got caught out. We discussed the Southwest in Bloom Award ceremony in Torquay. So there was 280 people that attended that event from across the Southwest. So the Southwest goes from Bath and Swindon, so Wiltshire effectively, all the way down Avon, Bristol, which doesn't actually include much in Bristol, did we? Don't see much from there. Somerset, Dorset, Devon and Cornwall. So, you know, it's a big area. So 280, it was a really excellent event. There was an excellent talk. And Newquay achieved its 16th consecutive gold, so which is awesome. And Bloom also got a discretionary award as well, a shield for its great social media use, which was a bit of a surprise to everybody. We had the Newquay in Bloom Gardens competition award presentation on Tuesday, a couple of days ago, and that was good. There was quite a few people turned up for that, which was great. And there'd been a suggestion that they produce a video of their work through the year to do with the judging, so we discussed that as well. I think that was all I think I had to say from that was on the report.
To offer our congratulations to Newquay and Bloom for all the work they do. I've already written to them as chair of ENF when we heard that they'd got the 16th consecutive award, and I also attended the Newquay and Bloom at St Michael's Church. I suppose it was a little disappointing because a number of the people who won the awards didn't attend, and you know, I never underestimate how long the amount of time you put in to put on an event, and then people who've received an award don't turn up. It's and unfortunately there was only myself from Newquay Town Council with the mayor and the deputy mayor, but there was no staff members, and they did get a couple of awards, which was, we thought somebody from the environment team may have been there. You know, I'm sure Joe must have been informed that they'd got something for the library.
We had, because he went and because he has been in communication with Leslie, because whether the team could go. So he was very aware of it, and he went last year, but you know.
But even to come to, somebody could have worked less on a day and had 2 hours to come across and receive that award on behalf of the town council. But Councillor Thompson did do it. She just did a great job.
It would be. I mean, we've been looking to get the board up for the Newquay and Bloom Awards back up. It used to be on the Killer Court, and you know, we've been discussing it for ages now, years, about having the board back up, but it doesn't seem to have progressed at all. I don't know if Joe I mean, I thought, because I've discussed it with him as well. So
sorry, Councillor Thompson, this is the Bloomers have the board.
No, it's been lost. It was down, I think, down in your basement. I think it
wasn't down there.
It was taken down because it was on the Killer Court, and it had all the awards and things that, you know, could be added. And we've discussed about having a board that the awards can be added onto. So
if it's been misplaced and it was part of the Killer Court refurbishment, then for the sake of a new sign, I don't know how this committee feels, but I mean, PJ Print could probably knock something up, I imagine.
There used to be a massive banner that used to go across the Bank Street that's pedestrianised. Do you remember that? It used to go right across, and can you remember that huge banner? And it used to say Newquay and Bloom, you know, 14th Gold Award. It was massive, absolutely massive, and that was I mean, I can remember that walking down, and
we've got the flag. Have you got the flag?
The flag is currently in my boot, actually, with all of the awards that I need to bring in.
Yeah.
I need to bring them in.
So, the flag normally goes on the library, but we need to get it outside for judging. We need to remember to get.
We did at one point on ENF talk about, and this was a couple of years ago now, we did at one point when Councillor Hannam was chair talk about a display cabinet for these awards somewhere, and I thought we said out on the Killer Court, but at the top of the Killer Court on the right as you go down is what I thought we talked about, but it was a few years ago and I have slept since then.
Remember that, but I can't remember where we were thinking about having it.
So if I discuss with Leslie again what it was, because it was so long ago, I can't remember. Yeah, and it was something which, maybe could be updated, as just as general board, a bit sort of like, the mayor one, sort of like it can just be. Yeah, I think that's sort of what I envisaged.
Probably wouldn't put it back where it was anyway, because it'd be obscured now. So
Yeah.
you'd want to find a different location.
But I talked with Joey about maybe having it in front of the library on the fence thing there somewhere. Again, yeah. I need to go back and visit that.
Well, I don't mind picking up, but if you could just give me an indication of what they want on the sign, we could work with a local supplier and get. They're not. I mean, it's not going to be. Remembering the sign, I can't imagine it's going to be a big expense.
You could probably ask Leslie or Babs Hannon if they've got a picture of it, so we've got an idea of what what they used to have. I'll be honest, I don't remember anything, to be honest.
You for info on just for feedback. Are you going to talk about the next book on the?
Councillor Creek for 9A, South West in Bloom ceremony hosting 2026.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So whilst at the Torquay South West in Bloom Awards, I was approached by the chair of that organisation, Mr. John Wheatley, lovely chap. Got to know him a little bit over the last few years as a regular attendee to these things, and he said that a couple of years ago I offered to host South West in Bloom here in Newquay. Maybe I'd had a drink, and said that they were looking for somewhere to host it this next coming year. The year after, they have a location already booked in. I think given the success of Newquay in Bloom over the last couple of years, and particularly more recently under the chairmanship of Leslie Frill, it would be a really good celebration of Newquay in Bloom to be able to have that awards ceremony here in Newquay. It's been a few years since we hosted. I know we have hosted in the past, I think at the Atlantic Hotel previously. I think it's an awards ceremony that happens in the shoulder season, so early October. That tends to be a quieter time of year for Newquay, the hotels and the tourism industry more widely. And I think it'd be a really good opportunity for the local economy, to invite several hundred attendees. There's sort of 200-300 people that attend these events. Obviously, each of those people needs somewhere to stay, frequent restaurants and bars. So I think firstly, it'd be a really good little economic boost for the town in early October. I think it would be, further show the town council's commitment to the brilliant work that Newquay in Bloom does and celebrate them within our community, and a real opportunity to put Newquay on the map for, for the attendees and for the wider audience that engage in South West in Bloom. As we're sat here talking about Torquay, none of us went, except for Councillor Thompson and I, but we're here talking about Torquay and we're shining a positive light on it in the same way that attendees coming to Newquay potentially next year would. So I think it's a really good opportunity. I think it's a great opportunity for our environment team to step up as well over the next 12 months and, and show their support for it. And make our town look brilliant in readiness for it. I think as a maximum cost of 10,000, I think there are opportunities both through match funding from people like BID, who I'm sure Mark would be on board with supporting, and also either in direct match funding or indirect in terms of maybe some discounted conference space at maybe one of the large hotels, given the additional income that they'd receive both from room bookings and food and drink income. I think it'd be a really interesting proposition, and South West in Bloom would put up the other 10,000. And so that's what John was saying to me, that Torquay spent this year 10,000, they put in 10,000, and they got a really good event for that. It would have to be at one of our large hotels here. So I suspect one of the, the big three, the Headland, the Atlantic or the Watergate, because I don't think there's anyone else that has the size of ballroom that we would need for that sort of an event. But of course, and I do appreciate it will be a challenge for our new events manager, but I think a really interesting challenge and an opportunity for collaboration across the council. And I know it's, I think that would be a really welcome thing. So anyway, so I'd be happy to propose that we go back to South West in Bloom, and agree that the town council would be happy to host 2026 South West in Bloom awards, with a budgeted spend of up to £10,000 from our side, and then have our events manager and the whole team, grants officer, might want to get involved as well. Obviously, clearly, marketing and comms is going to be a key part of this. A real team effort, I think, to celebrate Newquay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Any questions for Drew or anything from the panel?
Please.
Because you look like a panel tonight.
Can I ask some questions, just because I've not been involved with that? So would our team be responsible for organising the whole event, or is it something that South West in Bloom do and we would just be partners in? Because that's quite a big event to host just while she's starting doing Christmas and things. So I'm just thinking that there may need to be a cross-reference to C&T as well, if it's purely us doing that event.
So my understanding is that the South West in Bloom team will support along that journey. So it's a partnership project. But yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. Amy would need to be at the forefront of helping plan that event alongside South West in Bloom, indeed alongside Newquay in Bloom, who I would anticipate would want to get heavily involved in the planning of that.
I mean, they did say, I mean, they have done it before, Leslie, didn't it? And it was a huge amount of effort. So having someone like Amy there would definitely lighten the pressure that they're under. I mean, it's basically, organising a day's the night before as well. There's a civic dinner for the judges and civic dignitaries, and meet, and
We
yeah.
have the staff now as well, don't we? That we didn't have before, so they'll be in place by that time.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah,
wanted
yeah.
to ask how it
Yeah.
works.
So you're putting that forward as a proposal?
Yes,
I'll
make sure we win.
Happily second it. Are we all in favour of that? And obviously get BID heavily involved,
Sorry, just on that point, we did Britain in Bloom a number of years ago as well. We had them come down. We've done the same for Britain in Bloom it was more than a few years ago,
Yeah.
but quite a while ago.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
right, okay.
And it is quite a big, it's a lot.
Yeah.
So that's just something to be mindful.
So Newquay, Newquay used to be invited for Britain in Bloom, but haven't been for
Award
quite a
ceremony,
few for quite a long time.
Yeah.
So
The last time we hosted them, similarly to South West in Bloom, we had the Britain in Bloom award ceremony held here.
Welcome. So now we're on to item 10, facilities report.
It's more just for information. And just if you're happy for the additional £80 or
Yeah, about £81 for the road on.
the additional increase on the filters, because you already commissioned the work last week, but because there's been a slight increase between now and then, we just wanted to cover that off. So that was me's. So this came in literally today, so I don't expect members here to have read it or given it any real in-depth look, because I only received it today as well. So it's quite a comprehensive survey. The good news is that they've deemed the roof to be structurally sound, which is yes, which yeah, I was very pleased to hear. Relieved is an understatement, Councillor Thompson. Yeah, the section that was exposed due to the asbestos removal is actually historical damage. So it's likely what's happened, because it's a butterfly roof, water's likely pulled in that valley in the kind of bottom of the V shape. How they managed to resolve that, presumably when Cornwall Council owned the building, is build a flat roof section on top of that, and that seems to have resolved that from further degradation. So that looks like where that original damage came from. There is aspects of damp timbers, but it's not so horrendous that it's making the structure unsafe or structurally unsound. So he has given some recommendations, and I don't really expect you to go through this evening because there's a lot, but essentially the gist of it is that whole loft space, if it was better ventilated, it would vastly improve the situation. It would stop any further degradation. Potentially looking at UPVC systems for the soffits, and in terms of second floor refurbishment, ideally you'd want to redo the ceilings as well as the rest of it. So I know we've touched on solar panels and things like that in the past, and he did add a bit of commentary into that. He's not a structural engineer, he was just a roof condition surveyor, building surveyor. So if you do want to go down that route, you'll have to go in and really get a structural engineer to do the calculations needed for that. He did say it was quite the roof is already taking quite a bit of weight anyway, so you would need to structurally reinforce it if you wanted solar panels. So I guess my kind of question to yourselves as members is in terms of what are your timescales and expectations on the second floor, because you could do light touch refurbishment, which is dealing with the ceiling and dealing with the ventilation, and that would see the roof through, and you wouldn't necessarily need to do anything with the roof. But if you want to do solar panels, it's more than just a roof you're looking at, because the electrics in this building would need to be re-looked at the same time. So you start to pull a bit of a thread, and I don't know where to start and stop, and I kind of need a bit of guidance as to what you want to do with this building, whether it's a conversation for here and now, or whether it's a conversation informally with the working party. That might be a better approach, but I just think when we're looking at the library, when we're looking at this building, whether there needs to be more of a holistic approach to it, rather than just doing little bits at a time. So that's kind of my two penneth. Like I said, I don't expect you to have read that report, but that's the gist.
So sorry, thank you, Joe. I think you're right, it needs to be a holistic approach to both sites. Really pleased to see here the roof structure is reasonably sound. I know that Kieran's just looking at a grant pot for some major works. So I think it would be right of us to just wait that out and just see what he comes back with, and in the meantime the working party have a decent look at this as you suggested. But the whole solar panel thing, you know, it rattles on, and you know, in the budget we've got another £40,000 worth of electric bills for the next year for this site and the library, you know, and it's, you know, the more time you leave it, you know, and at some point we're going to have to bite the bullet and just pull the trigger on it, aren't we? Because we're just throwing good money after bad on that. Interestingly, so I don't know whether as part of the report or whether we have any feel for, or whether it's a whole nother report, on in terms of energy efficiency of this building currently, and whether there's anything in terms of insulation in the loft space that we need to add in, you know, to reduce that, you know, that ridiculous cost of electric currently.
It really depends what you want to do with this building and how far you want to go with it. Yeah. Because you could, if you want to look at insulation, you could feasibly do that if you're looking at retiling the roof, and you could deal with the ventilation at the same time. Yeah. So I think it's probably worth a working party to just review this, and arguably maybe even the library roof survey and some of the quotes we've had. I know we've got that later to discuss this evening, but there's a lot to unpick there, and it might be too much for this meeting. I don't know.
We definitely don't have the time to unpick all this now, but I do think, you know, if we get to a point where we're going to keep what we've got and we just need to do, as you say, light touch refurbishment, then insulating the place would, you know, if we're going to do walls and ceilings anyway, I mean, Steve, we've just done this for my house, haven't we? You know, the plasterboard backed insulation, all the, you know, on all of the internal walls and bits and pieces, and, you know, and heat pumps and, you know, whatever else it might be. But we need to do something different because it's just so energy inefficient, isn't it? And we need to do the electrics anyway. If we're going to keep this building, we're going to have to do the electrics at some point anyway, because they're just a basket case at the moment, aren't they? So.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. I mean, the construction of this building really needs, I mean, it's 100 years old. Yeah. So the walls are just always going to be cold. So it takes an enormous amount of energy to get this building warm. And then it does tend to stay, but it's the amount of energy putting into it to get it to that point. It was another point which I'll raise later is the author of the report was very knowledgeable, and he was giving me a lot more knowledge about what he's seen around the building. Not even just, he was only commissioned to look at the roof, but just some of the damp penetration we've got. He was essentially saying that's due to just the wrong type of render. So whoever rendered this building didn't work with the building. They worked kind of against it, so they're trying to turn it into something it wasn't. And the render you've got here is when it blows and water seeps in, it's got nowhere to go because it's the wrong type of render, it just goes inwards. Whereas if you were going to re-render it, you'd use lime, and you need, whatever you do here, it needs to be breathable. So it was a very interesting conversation, and it just sounds like a lot of things. Yeah, we need to work with building when we look at this and not trying to change it into something it isn't, given it's 100 years old. I mean, the amount of people that are surprised that it's not a listed building that I've spoken to recently is quite interesting. So on the point of the report, now we've had the report, my other recommendation, and Anne will kill me, but is the company are a small business, and they have requested whether they can have their payment outside of the payment run. So they've provided a report. The chap has come out at least twice. First to give me a quote, second to do a follow-up inspection. I thought it was only reasonable given that they've now given us the report to pay them outside of the payment run. It was agreed under delegated authority with the chair and vice chair, £950 for the report. It was £2,000 delegated authority, so it's way under. So if you're satisfied, to recommend that we, if you wouldn't mind, yeah.
Seconder, Councillor Creek, all in favour?
Thank you. So I think it's probably worth us separately looking at setting up a working party meeting just so we can have a look at this in a bit more depth, because we've got a lot to unpick. There's what's happening with this building, there's the fire doors which we didn't pick up in the last time either, so yeah. if that's okay, we'll look at setting that up. I'll circulate an email to the working party chair.
Didn't we set up a working party and it's in...
You
Yeah,
did,
it's in
yeah.
the minutes.
Yeah.
Last time we...
You know what, you read this, I've been through that many things that I nearly don't know where I am.
No, I thought maybe I dreamt it. Yeah.
There is a working party with yourself, Councillor Walton, Councillor Creed, Councillor Slade. I did send an email a couple of weeks ago, so...
Did you? Sorry.
Yes, I did, yeah. Potentially. But it was a couple of weeks ago. Send it.
Good answer, thank you.
Yeah, we had an email from a local cafe owner with some suggestions in regard to how we can turn the space out around by the toilets by the train station. So just asked to take it to the meeting, so it's whether something you just want to have a look at and note, possibly wait until you have your Director of Operations in post who can look at, who's looking at everything in whole anyway and could look at what that space is going to be used for. We could just keep it on file as some suggestions.
I suppose it is a great idea to try use the space, but we did have somebody who came, I think he's now gone back down Manor Road. He wanted to put a pop-up, a paella or one of those sort of things, I can't remember. But there was all the access issues, you know, how do you access all your equipment, because we don't own the Asda car park. That was the bugbear. I'll be really honest, I think we have got so much on at the moment, you know, having bits and pieces devolved. This isn't going to make us megabucks in the first instance. And I will honestly say, I don't feel we as volunteers have got the time and the energy to pick up another project, which this will become. When they talk about it being a mini Killicourt, well, we know what the Killicourt done to us all, to be honest. That I haven't got that energy. So unless anybody in the room has got the time, the commitment and the energy to work with the office to look at this, I think we should just put it on the back burner for a little while. But that's only my suggestion, and I'm open to what anybody else wants to say. But we're at budget setting, you know, we're trying to do things with the toilets, and it goes on and all the devolved properties that we're looking.
Yeah, so love the idea, and I love the fact that Topher's taken the time to email it. It's an area that I know he's really passionate about, given that he owns 2 businesses there. I think we definitely have an ambition to do something with that site, don't we? But I think you're right, Councillor North. I think, you know, we've got quite a lot of projects on the go at the moment, and what I don't want to do is rush this. I think the right time to do this, as you said, would be when the new Director of Operation, I should know this stuff, Director of Operations comes in, and maybe this could be one of their first projects to have a good look at, both revitalising, you know, the area and making it more than just a wonderful looking toilet block, which it is, but also commercialising it and you know, making it pay for the taxpayer. So I think it's a brilliant idea, and well done to Topher for bringing it to us, and let's make that one of the top things that the new Director of Operations deals with.
So my proposal is that the office go back to him and thank him, and say that we did, you know, we had a brief talk. I'm sure he could well be listening, but just the capacity that we have at the moment, we could not take that on. We are waiting for new employees, and that would be something that we look at, and we will inform him when that happens. But to thank him for taking the time to doing that. Going to extend for an hour. I hope we're not here for an hour, but rather do 15 minutes, 15 minutes, 15 minutes. Let's just go for an hour, and hopefully we'll get through it before that. Yeah. So I'm proposing, seconded by Councillor Slade, all in favour.
It's just for noting, isn't it? It's just for noting, isn't it?
Yeah, I do have something to raise under environment, but it's not in relation to the report. It's just a separate query I had that I wanted some input on from members. Not at this stage. There is a recommendation further down in regards to the Mount Wise Gardens collections. The only reservation I have with this is I'm still waiting for a cost from Cornwall Council in regards to a comparative cost. If they were going to continue emptying the bins, what that would be. There's a little bit of miscommunication between myself and the officer concerned because they've given me a quote of £8,000. So I'm trying to unpick that as how. Yeah, so I'm not in a position where I can feasibly give you a recommendation. That's nowhere near what it should be. So I think they're getting themselves confused with. I think they can get. Yeah, exactly that. All I wanted was a quote for the bin emptying. I think I've ended up with a quote for the entire site and a lot of other bits and pieces thrown in. So we'll come back to committee when we've got something a bit more reasonable there. Just sorry, Chair, before we move on. So the Mount Wise Gardens play area tender. So I have essentially 95% drafted it. It's good to go. The only thing that I need to slot in is a kind of final summary of the consultation that we've just been running. There's a lot of good feedback in there which we can utilise for the tender brief. But I just had a couple of queries of how you wanted to run this tender. So how we did Doorstep Green was it's a very similar process. You had a public consultation. We then appointed a bidder, and as part of that tender process, that bidder then had to run a second consultation event, which was done at the Lanherne pub, I believe, for Doorstep. And that was when the public had almost another opportunity where they could feed into the designs, and then the appointed contractor would then provide the council with a revised design based on further community feedback. And I believe that exercise, they offered us two options, one which was a revised design and a second option which was like the gold standard, and it was about £5,000 more. So there's pros and cons to that approach. The pros are you likely will get exactly what the public want because that's a really good engagement piece. The downside to that is it will just invariably take longer. So that's kind of one thing that I wanted to get your opinion on. The second is around timescales. Trying to line this up, the tender with committee meetings is quite challenging. So I will defer to Anne because she might have a better opinion on this. But speaking to the clerk, he's suggested whether you recommend the release from the earmark reserves for the project now and give delegated authority to myself, potentially Deputy Estates Manager, Environment and interested members of the Council to do the evaluation process and then appoint a contractor. I'll defer to Anne whether that's a sensible approach or not. The only alternative is I'm looking at essentially bids coming in for the 8th of December. You want a good, reasonable time frame for these people to give you a decent bid and decent design. And if you're looking at bids around December, your next E&F is January, at which point if you're then deciding on your quotes, you're looking at January, deciding your quotes and appointing a contractor, February full council for your EMR release, by which point if you want to target May in terms of your aspirations for having Wing Park done, I think you'd be quite tight doing that. So that's just two things for your consideration really, but Anne, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on the EMR.
Yeah. So at the current time, my understanding of the funding for this project is there is a £100,000 SIL release, and there is also an additional £50,000 from Boardmasters. Now, which gives you 150,000. 150,000 isn't a huge amount for a play area in this day and age anyway, so you know that will put some restrictions on the project. However, we've already agreed and got council's permission for the release of the SIL money at 100,000. I've had a conversation with the town clerk around the remainder of the SIL money and the grant funding from Boardmasters, because we as a council have to bankroll that project in that Boardmasters will give the £50,000, but they normally give it over, say, a 3-year period. We don't get it all in one go, so we will have to pay for the works up front. After speaking to the town clerk, we were of the opinion that given the levels of the SIL funding, you should agree to recommend another £50,000 release from SIL to get that agreed through full council, and that because the EMR for the open spaces is so low, that you agree that the grant funding that comes back from Boardmasters at the time towards this project, because obviously we would be bankrolling it, it would go back into that open spaces EMR. So that was the suggestion.
So the 100k is already there,
Yeah.
and then we've got the 65k, and I think, did you say a further 28 somebody did in SIL? That I've written that down somewhere.
So we've got 65,000 in SIL at the moment.
But we thought there was a further 28.
Yeah, we've had it. I think that I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was around 28,000. We're due around 28,000.
So we would take the 50 from that 65 plus 28.
Yes.
And I know there are lots of caveats with the SIL, so we have to start that work by a certain date, or no?
So the SIL funding is around, it has to be used by certain dates, otherwise you lose it. So we do need to look at that, but normally with contractors there is like part payments and things that go through. So I'm hoping that wouldn't be an issue, but that would be our recommendation to you. So agree that a further 50,000 release from SIL for the fund, for the play area. But then also, because obviously that's the bankrolling part of the Boardmasters funding, that you agree that that goes back into, when that's received, that goes back into the open spaces EMR, because that's where these kind of things, any repairs, anything else would come from.
Yeah. Any questions or comments or?
Sounds like a sensible way forward. It sounds like you've almost given me £200,000 for a play park there, Anne. Contingency. Sorry, Joe, and I know you emailed me and I haven't responded, have I, about the process for the tender. So I think we've got a really good consultation out at the moment. I think, I don't know what the engagement level's been like. Maybe you could give us an update on that. But
As of yesterday, we were at 176 responses.
oh, that's very good. 176, very good. We're doing some activity next week with Trenance. They're coming into the chamber, and I think they're going back to the school then to design their own play park. And I know that there's been some noise on social media, and I think, you know, hopefully they'll see some more activity by the end of the month. And also it's half term, isn't it, in the next couple of weeks? So I anticipate that might encourage a few more responses. I don't know that we necessarily need to get the contractor to do a second consultation. I think what I'd be really keen to do is get the consultation done, get the tender out, get it designed, and then go into the primary schools within 5 minutes of here, and just say, is this okay? Does anyone really hate this? And get some feedback there. And maybe even, put it out for another week or something on our social medias for any commentary. The feeling that I'm getting when I'm talking to people is what they don't want is another plastic play park. And if we can have something a bit more like what we had down at Trenance Valley before it was replaced, then they'll be happy. And as long as it's challenging enough for the older kids, that seems to be the feedback that I'm getting. I'm not sure how useful an evening in a pub with some adults talking about a play park is, if I'm honest, when they're not the ones that are going to use it. I did have this argument on Facebook with someone the other day. It got a bit heated. I'm really keen that it's the kids that feed into this, and I think that's the most important thing. So in answer to your question, I don't think we need that. A little bit of space to be able to feed into the kids what we're planning after we've gone through that tender exercise, I think is useful. I'm really keen to get it done by May.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Remembering the consultation last time, I don't seem to recall any real significant differences between the winning bidder's design and the design we ended up with. You're talking literally, I think, one swing maybe changed to an accessible swing. And if these play area designers are worth their weight, then they'll provide a good enough design, particularly if you've got a healthy consultation that they can kind of feed from. So I'm more than happy to tweak it. That will make it a shorter process. The only query I had was around the evaluation process, in terms of whether you give delegated authority to myself, another manager, and any interested members, just to essentially evaluate the tenders and appoint a contractor.
And that seems like a sensible way forward, and also speed things up, presumably. Though, does that essentially give all of that power to that small group of people to spend £150,000+? I mean, I feel comfortable with that. I think, we'd need some officers and some members on that. I'd really like to be on that, given my...
You're on it.
Thanks. But yeah, I think anything that speeds it up, Jane.
So we need a proposal. Oh, sorry, Anne.
Can I just say one thing in terms of the contractor and how that project's run, because I wasn't here when you did your original or the last one, is because you're looking at going over year end, it's really important for whoever's managing that project to, at the end of the financial year, be able to give a valuation of the works that have been completed, because otherwise that will become an issue. So I'm just sort of highlighting it.
Yeah, I mean, if the intention is to also then show the community the appointed bidders kind of draft design, then you'll appreciate that there's a perception that a few people are making the decision, but ultimately you're just deciding on the contractor. The contractor will come up with the design. No one here would have come up with the design, and that design will also go out for further feedback. So essentially what you're deciding is a competency of the contractor, not necessarily... The design will come into it, but that's what you really would be looking at as well in that exercise.
Do you want to word a proposal?
Yeah, happy to propose then delegated authority to go through the tender process and allocate a contractor and release funds up to £150,000. That should be, which officers do you want on that, Joe?
With the caveat that when we get all of money, it goes back into the...
Do we need to caveat that in the we'll do that separately, yeah.
Focus on delegated authority. I mean, myself, Councillor Creek, I'd suggest the Deputy Manager for Environment, given that they would be managing that site, and any other members that I don't know how many you want on the working party.
I think it would be useful to have certainly the Vice Chair, given that he's a builder and a ground worker. Having dug a massive trench in my garden. On that at least. I don't know whether you want to be on it, Chair. No, that's fine. Okay.
I think also, I mean, this is only a thought. I know you're going to get the Deputy Estate Manager, but sometimes I think we need to bring in the workers who will be maintaining it afterwards. You know, sometimes they've got an input, they see things differently. It's a different set of eyes. And I know sort of the Deputy Estate Manager has done lots of things, but they never get that opportunity. So I'm not saying they want to progress to be the Deputy Manager, but I think they just need to have them opportunities. So I think one of those on board would be really good.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly, we can factor that in, whether they get involved with the actual evaluation scoring element or they feed into the design. Yeah, definitely.
proposal for the release of 50k, the additional 50 catering, which is the way.
And do you need anything for the board master's money being paid back into the open spaces EMR? Happy to propose that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've taken over again.
That's why I said, well, you just say I'll second it, all in favour.
This is where we get on.
We get a bit giddy after 9 o'clock, don't we?
Go.
On to item 11, the Environment Service Report, to receive a note and consider any recommendations within. Have we?
Yeah, we just done it.
Okay, sorry. Banner request then for bid and the grants officer. Banner request?
Poll wheel. That's just for note. Poll wheels just for
I
information.
thought I
for
said
updating
poll
note.
wheel a little while ago and you just said, no, you've done it. Okay. Poll wheel winter, yeah, I did say that and you said, oh no, we haven't done something else. I remember poll wheel winter works proposal because it was a bit of a mouthful. So,
Just for information. It's
Oh,
an
right.
information.
for noting? Yeah, okay. So I'll note it. We all noting it? Yeah. No, but just so they know. So now we get on to item 12, the banner request, the bid and grants officers. A banner project.
Within your packs, you were given some options.
Oh, yeah.
So this is purely funded by bid. They just wondered if you had any opinions. They prefer option C and options F that would rotate. It's just whether anyone had a view and they're happy with those designs.
This is going all the way through town? From to
4th Street all the way through.
to...
Just up by here, I believe. On all of our catenary wires, so up to Victoria, is it the last one?
Any cost to us?
No.
Other than our... And do you know what would be really good if we could... If we could find the Nuki and Bloom banner, and it would be, no, seriously, to be put up at the same time as no cost to us. But it is a big banner like that, except, you know, when you look at these on there, they look at if they're that width. This one was like that. So we must ask, that could be in Councillor Hannon's shed. But it was massive. Do you remember it?
Vaguely, yeah. I don't know if I can look up. CNF was their favourite, was it?
CNF.
Yeah, C's nice, I like it. That one.
Any idea why do they rotate them, just for it to look different? It's just, yeah. I don't even know.
Shit. Oh, no. I think I'd go C myself.
Yeah, CNF
F's not
rotate.
for me. F isn't for me. Oh, let me go back to it. No.
Can I just say, some say Visit Nuki, which is our website, and some say Love Nuki, which is their website. So maybe they're...
Oh, well,
That could be
let's go
a
for
mix.
F then.
No, that's why they're doing two.
CNF, yeah, they're rotating them.
So we both get...
We're happy with that.
We don't have to pay for it. Love Mark. Hold on.
So if you're happy.
Oh, we're good
You're
to
up
him,
there.
you know.
Yeah,
So are we going C and F then?
C and F and the rotate, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we propose that we
Propose
agree,
we're happy.
and if you could just hang fire a little minute, if we see we get the Nuki and Bloom banner, because we could put that where it was in Bank Street, because what that did do, it drew your attention to, you know, our lovely planters and the hanging baskets that used to be there. I can't believe nobody remembers it being there. Do you remember? Yeah. You must remember it. You've been here a long time. You must, yeah.
I vaguely remember
Yeah, it was
it.
so big. I always remember
Yeah.
that, yeah. Anyway,
Sorry.
you don't have to.
Can I just ask something really, it's not, I'm not trying to be controversial, but by the time people are here and are embracing our town and visiting, and then we've got Visit Nuki with the website, etc. What's the, do you know, just because I don't know much about the team from BID, what's the purpose? Just to, thank you.
So it was one of my ideas that I had when I was walking around on my monthly walk around with Mark from BID. But actually, it's a slightly different concept to what I'd originally said. Essentially, what I wanted was to be able to walk through the high street in the summer, have some big banners rather than the bunting. I don't love bunting. I think it feels a bit old-fashioned and it's just not doesn't have the impact.
It'd be nice if it was farmers bunting, because that's lovely.
Okay. Maybe it's just because it's so sparse, it's just not having the impact. But what I said was actually what I'd really love is some big banners going across the high street as you walk in along, saying something along the lines of Summer of Pride or Welcome to Newquay or something like that. Now, Mark's taken that idea clearly and changed it slightly. I still would prefer Summer of Pride linking into Cornwall Pride, which we would have here in Newquay, or Welcome to Newquay, which obviously links into our wonderful toilets. But, you know, if he's paying for it, then it's up to him, isn't it? I suppose, context-wise.
Have you been to farmers and seen the...
I was just going to say that in terms of the Visit Newquay, and I know it says Visit Newquay, but our website has all of the events that are on locally. It has so much information on there, whether you're a resident or a visitor, and all kinds of stuff. So I just wanted to say that. And I think it's really great. I think it'll look awesome. But I also think it's something that they can build on, so that other people maybe in the future, if they carry on doing it, can sponsor their own banners, or you can have different things. So I think it'll be a really good...
Thanks for the contact. Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. So as you'll be aware, working with Newquay Clean, we have had bodyboard recycling locations set up at Porth, Towan and South Fistral. We've been collecting bodyboards all summer, these polystyrene awful ones. At the end of the half term, we're going to collect all those bins in, bring them in for the winter. We've been collecting all the bodyboards that we've had up at the Mount Wise Centre. I think we've got about 80 or 100 up there. And so what we're going to be doing is taking all of those, hopefully with our environments teams, moving them to Newquay Junior Academy on Edgecombe Avenue in their hall. We've got about 60 children who are going to come in there, goggled and gloved up, and we're going to strip all those bodyboards down in a well-ventilated hall before anyone goes health and safety mad, and to their component parts, so polystyrene, fabric, string. The polystyrene then goes sent off and recycled into essentially like resin pathway stuff, I think. And the material can be used for whatever. I think they were talking about creating bags or something. But ultimately, it's an event to highlight the work that we've been doing as a community this summer, and educate the children on the harm that these horrid polystyrene causes to the environment, particularly the oceans, and how wasteful it is because they're not fit for purpose and they break really easily, right? We're also going to invite to that event local stakeholders. The invite is in my inbox. I haven't sent it to Town Council yet, although Molly created it for me, thanks to Molly. And we're going to invite businesses that sell these things to try and help them understand why they shouldn't and that there are other alternatives. And we'll also invite the media to cover the whole event. So I think it's going to be a brilliant event. The ask is whether the Town Council would be happy to support that further by funding the production of some small pin badges, little metal pin badges to give to the children who take part in this as a bit of a kind of recycling champion. I don't have a set cost. I know Molly and Helen from Cornwall Council were both looking at it, but I wondered whether we could allocate just delegated authority to maybe myself and Molly to have a look at that, up to £500 for some little metal pin badges for the kids. Happy to take that from the weed control budget, or another budget that you think's more appropriate.
You didn't use your mayor making budget, so
Oh yeah, happy to use that as well. Yeah, did we allocate that to tree planting, or was that, no, that's fine. Yeah, then that's fine, Anne, thanks. Yeah, so just really just to celebrate the work and thank the kids for their work, and obviously, you know, continue on. And hopefully we'll have some spare pin badges. I think we're going to order a few hundred for going forward as well. Thank you.
So what I'd ask of that is that BID contribute to those pin badges as well, because it's their businesses in the town that are selling those boards. So that's, you know, I just go back to him, to Mark, and say, what do you think? You know, even if you go with 25%. Pardon?
Yeah, no, I think that's fine. If we're okay to sign off the spend now, and then I'll go back for a kind of a after the fact conversation bid, because we only got 3 weeks.
Lovely.